Hello, I'm Jane McKenzie, CEO and founder of 365 Healthy by Choice. I'm a board certified pharmacist and we focus on quantum and food state nutrients, where we believe that prevention is better than waiting for when it's too late. Today we're going to be talking about nutrition and nourishment in the new paradigm. Now more than ever before do we need to be focusing on nutrition for our body, for our cells, our tissues and our organs, so that we can build a very strong immunity to ward off unwanted infections and viruses. If we start looking at nutrition and what it really means insofar as the body is concerned, we are speaking about electrons and we are speaking about an electron spin. The faster the electron spin, the higher the frequency of the food and the higher the nourishment, the more nourishing the food is for us. So let's, for example, take something like sunlight, visible and the invisible rays. These have got the fastest electron spin in terms of nourishing our bodies. When we step outside into the sunlight, our body will immediately absorb the rays in the color spectrum that we need to restore the health to our body. So if the liver is ailing, we will restore the right color in the right spectrum to heal the liver. When I'm speaking about electrons, what I'm referring to is a little bit of science here. The atom has got a proton and a neutron in the middle, and circulating around it in orbit are electrons. Sunlight has a very, very fast, intensive electron spin. All right, and the food and the nourishment that we're speaking about today needs to be in the right spin so that we can correct the spiral of our body. So sunlight plays a very, very important part in terms of our nourishment. And today we're seeing lots and lots of a decline in vitamin D, and part of the reason for that is that we don't step out into the sun. We're inside in offices most of the day, and then we're inside in the evenings as well. So sunlight's very important. And then of course the plant will absorb those very fast rays and photosynthesize and produce glucose and food for humans and plants. So the frequency of the electron in plants is very high, but some plants higher than other plants. So for example, if we're comparing normal lettuce and basil and foods like that to something like a blue-green algae or a reishi mushroom or a cordyceps mushroom or a bee pollen, something of a much higher frequency, those electrons are more tightly held to the nucleus and the proton and spinning at a very high pace compared to lettuce and tomatoes and those kind of normal vegetable foods for us. So we need to be very selective here, because those higher spin products, foods, will be more nourishing to our body. They bring in properties and build our immune system to a much greater extent. In fact, they even offer what we call a transferred immunity to the body compared to the lettuces and the basils. So encapsulated, entrapped sunlight is photosynthesis, and we would then consume that in the form of food. Not to mention, if I refer to Rudolf Steiner, that we have the ability to photosynthesize. We do have receptors in our cells. So that's for another talk, another time, on a much more deeper level. Moving then in terms of down the food chain, we move more to animals. So animals and humans would then consume the plant food, consume the electron spin, but the electron spin gets slower and slower and slower as we move down the food chain. And to the extent that when we eat food today, in the raw form, the raw state, the higher the electron spin compared to the cooked state. And when we eat today's food versus 3 days old food, the electron spin obviously is much higher and much faster in today's food than 3 days old food. So if you're eating 3 days old food, you're going to look like you eat 3 days old food. You're going to look 3 days old. So it's all about energy, and it's about this electron spin. And this is where we focus on food state nutrients at 365 Healthy by Choice, because this is where we want to bring in the right spin and a high intensity, a very fast electron spin in the foods that we're consuming. So it doesn't end there, because foods, plants, animals will bring in proteins, minerals, vitamins, antioxidants and things, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. But we also need to have a look at microbes. Now, the microbial cloud that we all live in, that the plants, the soil, animals, and ourselves live in, is exactly the same. But we do breathe and eat this microbial cloud of organisms all the time. If we wash our food too much, remember we are washing that microbial cloud right off. And part of that is part of the digestion for ourselves, part of metabolism. If you took a blue-green algae, the green part is the plant part, the blue part is in fact the microorganism, the bacteria. So it's not unknown for fungi and microbes to be associated with foods. We've just forgotten about it, we're not aware of it. So we need to look also then at the nourishment and the nutrient value of microbes. I'm talking about the beneficial bacteria, fungi, and yeast that you would find in a live liquid microbial preparation. These are going to bring us the highest electron spin. I've seen them under the microscope, and it's a kaleidoscope of lights just scooting underneath the microscope in front of your eyes. Very, very beautiful. So microbes are going to also imprint on us and feed us and feed our gut very much, and in particular. Another important aspect that feeds us is the ground, and let's just go back a couple of steps there. The ground is made up of soil colloids, and the soil colloids are negatively charged, right? So that means the soil is ready and prepared to absorb the calcium, the magnesium, the phosphorus, the positively charged minerals, so that the plant can absorb it. Okay? Now this negatively charged soil also, when we step on the earth, the grass, on the seashore, these negatively charged electrons will go straight into our body and neutralize any abnormal positively charged spaces, for example, caused by stress, adrenaline, disease, processed foods, lack of sleep. So we need those electrons as nourishment from the ground to feed us. Now, our ancestors knew all this. And in this dispensation right now, in the new paradigm, as we shift and look at nourishment in a different light, we need to realize all these sorts of forms of electrons that are important for us. So grounding is absolutely critical. It's essential. It reduces immunity. Improves immunity. It reduces inflammation and pain at the same time. So just to point out, and I will be going into these different segments into a lot of detail in future courses to follow. Other areas that feed us would be spatial arrangements. We all know about domes across the world, across the all the spiritual sects, if you like. We go into dome-shaped dwellings, dome-shaped rooms, and a dome shape is a scalar wave which will feed our body, which is evidenced by an extended aura if you took an infrared photograph. And more on that again in courses to come. So a dome shape will feed us. It will feed us via scalar wave. Now quantum is a scalar wave. So we'll talk about quantum nutrition in a moment. Also, in those dwellings that are dome-shaped, you will normally find bells. And when bells are rung, there's a sound which also has a frequency which will also feed us. There's also an electron aspect to sound which will feed us on our bodies as well. So these are all natural things that I'm looking at that can actually feed our body very, 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 very well. Not to mention the importance of a rest so that the body can assimilate the nutrients that it's absorbed, that have been presented in front of it during the day, and then actually go and repair the body, because we do need proteins for repair and growth and sugars and stuff to feed our brain. But we need the sleep so we can nourish and replenish the nervous system in particular, which guides the hormonal system and many other systems in our body. So not to forget sleep. Sleep is absolutely critical in terms of moving forward and being nourished. And even the people that we meet and the love that comes out of our hearts, we need to be sharing and attracting people with also the electron frequency that we're sharing, and helping those where the electron spin might not be in our space, for example. So the people that we meet, we can meet with certain people and raise our electron spin, and we can meet with other people and share our electron spin. But just to be totally aware of, if we're building our immunity, we need to really, really build our own electron spin, which is called our bioresonance, the resonance frequency of our body. So be careful of things that will drain our energy, that will slow that electron spin down, so that the electrons are spinning in a very, very, very wide circle, far away from the neutron and the proton. And basically the battery runs flat. So we don't want that. We want to keep the battery really charged and the electron spin very, very high. That is how we build our immunity. This is nourishment. This is real, real, real nourishment. By the same token, the air that we breathe, because the air that we breathe needs to be inhaled properly and deeply, and then exhaled properly, deeply, and very long and out, so that we get the carbon dioxide out. So we need the oxygen, the nourishment of the oxygen, to come through into our body, and then at the same time the elimination to happen regarding the carbon dioxide. So oxygen, and obviously the quality of the air that we breathe, is going to also have a positive electron effect on our body in terms of detoxification. The more we can detoxify, the higher our electron spin and the higher our immunity. So oxygen is seen definitely as a nutrient. And along with oxygen would go water. We would want to be consuming as structured water as possible. And I will be speaking about that in coming up modules and talks and courses that I'm going to be doing, so that we can actually get a real handle on structured water and what it does for the body and how it actually feeds the body properly, and it doesn't take away the electron spin from our bodies. This is what we're constantly concerned about right now in this talk right now, is our electron spin. Very, very, very important. So all the cells, the organs, the tissues need to be nourished, and they need to be cleansed. The lung must be cleaned, right? It can't be full of toxins. The gut needs to be cleansed. It also can't be full of toxins. And that goes for the skin as well. The skin needs to be really clean, so that we can raise our electron spin, raise our frequency, raise our health levels. And that's the most important thing today, is having a clean body and a nourished body. Very, very, very important. Now, a lot of people talk about natural foods, they talk about organic foods, and just something very quickly on that without going into a lot of detail. A natural food will be a food that occurs naturally, let's say spirulina on a lake. That's a natural food, all right? An organic food would be a food that is then farmed organically without chemicals. Okay, not necessarily a natural food. So is lettuce a natural food? That's what we need to really determine. But the wild natural foods are there, that were placed there in the universe's pharmacy, if we put it that way. Okay, so very important then, distinguishing the difference between the two. And the electron spin of the natural wildly grown food is much higher than any farmed food, any organic food, for example. But of course, an organic food will have a much higher electron spin than a commercially grown food in chemicals and fertilizers, etc., with an unstructured water. So just a little bit on that, and then moving towards an ending here, where we're looking specifically at what are we talking about when we're talking about nourishment. We're talking about proteins on one level. Proteins are for growth and repair of the body. And unless we're getting the right building blocks into the body, we aren't able to do the growth and repair. We aren't able to build an immunity. We aren't able to build neurotransmitters, hormones, enzymes. So the quality of the protein is absolutely critical. And in those higher frequency, nutrient-dense foods such as the rishis, the pollens, medicinal mushrooms, blue-green algae, so even in some adaptogenic herbs, we find very high frequency proteins that are specifically building blocks for growth and repair. Even the proteins for collagen, even the proteins for RNA, DNA, for our chromosomes, we need to be getting in those building blocks. And there's going to be tons more of this, which I'm going to be sharing with you in future talks. We have to have the right building blocks to function properly and optimally. Similarly, we need the right long chain sugars. Forget the short chain sweet ones that we all crave and want, and so do the parasites living inside us and the viruses grow off. We need the long chain sugars that again you find in these highly nutrient dense foods, the blue-green algae, pollens, medicinal mushrooms, etc. These are the ones that the brain is going to thrive off. Long chain sugars. Also, we would be looking at minerals and vitamins in the right spin, and this is where we have a quick look at the difference between a natural food and a supplement. So a natural food is in the food state form as nature intended, with the DNA intact and the intelligence of the plant intact, with the right spin, so that when we consume and the body receives those products, its innate potential to heal can kick in immediately without a draw on the electrons and the energy of the body. In other words, these foods assist the body and give the body more energy as the body uses and assimilates them, and it's very quick and hardly uses any of the liver almost to metabolize. So these vitamins and minerals and even antioxidants need to be in the natural form, not altered in any way, exactly in the universe's pharmacy. So those are the main things regarding nourishment in the new paradigm that I wanted to leave you with, just to plant some seeds. And specifically looking at our body, these foods will generally ensure for us that the body is alkaline, not only the blood, the saliva, the urine, but inside the cell. And I'm going to be speaking a lot about that and explaining how we do that. The alkalinity inside the cell needs to be restored so that waste and everything can be removed and oxygen and food can enter the cell. We also need to have a look then at the hydration of the body and the oxygen levels of the body for optimum functioning. So this is what we're going to be discussing over the next couple of weeks, especially this weekend when we have a 24-hour meeting where we're going to be looking at the quantum state, quantum nutrients, which are the natural food state nutrients as nature intended. And we're going to be looking at lots of people addressing us and speaking to us about all sorts of new paradigm things regarding economy, regarding health, regarding environment, regarding spirituality. And you're all invited. It's free. It's a Zoom link, and you can come in and go. There'll be live case studies. There will be questions and answers. And there's a wonderful WhatsApp group to join. And please have a look at the advert from which you got this video clip from, and there's a website to go and register, which you will have already done, and will give you more information, and also on the website. So we will be joining Desiree Dubonnet, also known as Professor Bill Nelson, who will be guiding this presentation for us. And I look forward to seeing you in many more of the short and long courses. The next one I have coming up will be looking at also quantum nutrition and healing and the power of you to heal. And that'll be about a 1 hour talk. Normally there's a nice discount. Now normally it's about $100 and we're looking at $69 right now, which is wonderful for everybody. And more information you will find, as I say, on the website, but in that WhatsApp group. Thank you very much.